I'm going to show you how to assemble a body on Presley Awake. And this would be the same for most of our Realborns. I'm using the body with the front loading legs and the jointed arms. And I've already filled the legs with glass beads up to about the knee, and then the top is filled with polyfill. And when your vinyl is warm, it's really easy to put on a ring and then I capped it off with a plug. And what this ring will do is allow the leg to rotate, and when you assemble a body this way, I call this ring jointed. It gives you a lot of the same posability that a joint will, but it works for these legs that load straight into the front of the body. On the arms, I've done basically the same thing as the legs. I filled them with glass beads to about the elbow, topped it off with polyfill, and put a plug in the end. And one of the reasons these plugs are really nice is that it holds the contents of your arm in place, and it also, because the plastic goes down a little further here, it also makes the arm more rigid so that it's less likely to collapse and fall off the body. So I'll go ahead and put the legs on. You just thread the cable tie through. And tighten this to where you still get good movement here, but that it's fairly snug. Like that. And then the next thing I like to do is get some polyfill and stuff the bottom. You can use other materials down here, but I found that for getting a good form on the little baby's bottom, that it's better just to put some polyfill in there. It helps it hold its shape better. And I also like to fill the whole lower portion of the body with polyfill. And when you're working with polyfill, you don't want to take too big of a piece at a time, or it will be a little clumpy looking and not as smooth. So basically I've just filled like the diaper area with polyfill, and I'd like to work a little bit of a hole down in the center, partway down in there for my glass beads. This is just a section of nylon with, this is about 1.5 pounds of glass beads. You can vary this depending on how heavy you want your baby to be, but this, doing about 1.5 pounds will give you about a 5-pound baby, depending on how you weighted the rest of it. And 5 pounds is a really good weight, I think, for a newborn. It's a more realistic fill for a baby that might be around 7 or 8 pounds. Because live weight does not feel as heavy as something that isn't actually living. Then once I've got my nylon with glass beads in, I try to keep that centered as I take some of the baby fat pellets and pour it all the way around the bag of glass beads. And this makes the center of the torso and belly have a really nice squishy baby fat feel. And you can reach in and grab your bag of glass and pull it up a little if it sinks down too far. And you can really fill this up as high as you want, but I like to stop about to just the armpit level or a little lower, just below the, right about to the chest level. And then top it off with a little bit of polyfill and fill out the chest and shoulders. But I don't like to stuff mine too tight. If you wanted your baby to sit up really well, you'd stuff it a little firmer. If you want it to feel more like a newborn floppy, you want to keep it pretty loose. And usually what I'll do is just fill it up to where I think it's about right. And then I'll kind of squish it and make sure that it's still a little loose in there. And if stuff starts popping up too much, I'll pull a little out, but that feels pretty good about right there. And then next I like to put the head on. This one here we've got, this is about 11 or 12 ounces of glass beads in a nylon. And I just put that down in the head. If you just kind of poke it a little at a time with your finger, go down in there pretty easy. And I usually position this a little towards the back. So I'll just put some stuffing in front of it. And I'll usually let it come a little bit towards the front again and put just a little bit in the back. Just a little bit. It'll end up a little bit more towards the back of the head when I bundle. I've also placed a ring on the neck. This will allow it to turn easily. I did this while the vinyl was still hot from the last baking of the vinyl, and it's really easy to put these on when the vinyl's warm. And I'm going to cap this off with another plug. And place the head inside. And make sure that you don't have any polyfill sticking up. It's really difficult to get it out. Go ahead and lay the baby down. Thread the cable tie. And on the neck, you can usually tighten this, just not as tight as you can, but until it's is tight and it still turns really easily. On the legs you have to be a little more careful for some reason. I found if you go too tight there, they don't move as well, but the neck you can get that really pretty tight. It still turns well. And it looks a little funny when you do a floppy baby without the clothes on, but when you get it dressed, it gives it a really nice feel. And then next I just put a little bit of stuffing in the arm. You don't want to overfill these, you want it to be pretty loose. And I partially thread this cable tie. Be careful not to pull it too tight that your arm won't fit. Make sure all the stuffing gets out of the way of the cable tie area. And I like to position my arms so that they kind of lay across the chest with the, when you have the arms straight here, that they'll just lay across the chest. And then in the arms, I just go ahead and tighten those as tight as I can. And the other arm. And position the arm so it lays across the chest. And tighten that. And the last part of the body assembly is to clip the cable ties. I'm using cuticle nippers. You need to be careful when you do this to not cut your cloth body. You can come in through from this side. A little easier to not cut your body. You just want to come right across the head of that cable tie and clip just right down next to it so that when you clip it, it'll be smooth. There won't be any rough edges. And then our body assembly is complete. This baby Presley, along with these other beautiful Realborn babies that you see, were created at a Rose Cares Cuddle Therapy class. These babies will be donated to nursing homes for patients with Alzheimer's and dementia. And now we're going to dress our baby. It's always good to put a diaper on your Realborn baby because under the clothes it feels more realistic. Next, I'm going to put a onesie on my baby. I always like to put a onesie on my babies because it gives the doll a clean, crisp, and completed look. Now this baby has painted hair, but if you have a baby with rooted hair and you have it all combed nice and you don't want to mess it up, a good way to put on the onesie is rather than going over the top of the head like you normally would, and start at the bottom. And then that way you haven't messed the baby's hair up. Next I will put on her diaper cover and her sweet little dress. And give her a little pair of socks.